Hello, seekers of wisdom. These past few days have been valuable lessons. The absence of growth and the prominence of discomfort, anxiety, and restlessness have really engulfed the whole practice of mine these past few days. And that's partially why I haven't made an update video, because I didn't see a lesson in that necessarily. But what I realized after troubleshooting was not only the routine that I mentioned last time, the making sure that the basic requirements for living a conscious life are amended for and accounted for, but simple things like being willing to still continue learning from the resource that requires your humility. So what I mean by that is, if you're putting a recording for your meditation, don't immediately level up and think that you're an expert. That's at least what, the mistake I made. I let the ego suppress my need for some guidance based on trying once and finding success in unguided 1-hour meditation. But I realized that in time, it led to some difficulty because I was misaligned after some time because of repeated practice in a non-ideal direction. The first time was okay because I was still centered by the direct instruction, but then afterwards, the internal baggage started to pile up. And now what I realize is, after putting on the video again, after putting on the guidance, that helped my meditation greatly, and my practice boosted because of that. As for other lessons, I couldn't help but meditate on the thought of charity and what that means in terms of a rational life and a life that is seeking spiritual growth. When I consider helping others or spending my time, I always consider the cost and, my energy and desire to do a thing that doesn't directly benefit me, an action that directly doesn't benefit me. But what I realize now is that most actions do indeed benefit, even if there isn't an immediate return for that time investment that you're putting towards, with no expectation of receiving any kind of material good or monetary good. And here's where I understood that. Spending time working with the cows on the property here, there's a certain level of humility that's required, and there's also a certain level of love and empathy and compassion that you have to, that I had to let into my life while engaging with these animals. And there wasn't an immediate joy or satisfaction from that work necessarily, but I found myself today wanting to interact with them more and spend time with them more. Because in their simple life, being a part of service and helping these animals, I realized that there's some joy, there's something coming from this, and there's something I'm getting. Now I didn't understand what quite then, except it feels good to help these animals. But after some time, I realized that my meditation today also coincided, my effective meditation coincided with this desire to, increased desire to help these animals. And it dawned on me that providing charity, being charitable, being giving, opens you up to receive. And receive not necessarily in the sense of, you will elevate some karmic balance that you have with the universe, that you do this X activity and you will receive this Y thing that you value, or this good that you value. or the state that you value. It's not necessarily an equivalent trade here, or even disproportionate trade, right? But I mean, there are different theories on that. I'm just operating from the principle here that there isn't a karmic balance, because if we can find benefits in spiritual practices and spiritual truths secularly, then why not continue to practice? Then why bother wasting our time and energy worrying and operating in a state where we aren't fully conscious beings? It's very, very simple. So this state of charity, of receivership, what value does that bring to your life? Well, here's what I noticed. When meditating, there are many, many subtle energies that one can divert their attention to and focus on. It's like the lens on a microscope, right? You can view the entire sample from a macro perspective, but you can also dive deep in. But you won't see the entire picture if you zoom in very closely to that sample, right? Well, the magnitude of all of those influences that your conscious awareness can focus on are increased through the sheer practice of being charitable and in a state of receivership. Because when there's beneficial energy, and what that means secularly is when you're in a state, in a conscious state of joy or bliss or love, or any of these positive emotions that we want to generally be able to live in, those states are more open to us when we are willing to receive. One of the lessons I've learned recently has been that stress and sadness and depression and many of these states, transient states that we find ourselves in, that we are endowed upon by our society at large, that this is the normal way of being because we haven't learned anything better. We haven't learned or been taught how to live a joyful and happy life, and how to solicit those states, how to create those states within our bodies and our minds, and our souls, if that exists. So being open to receive, not only receive anything and everything, but receive with direct intention, you will find, at least I found, a direct a benefit in my meditation practice and an increased joy in the living experience, just from being able to provide charitable work with no expectation of return for these animals. Right? I'm not a huge animal person, but I'm a person. I'm a living being, and so are they. And being able to be helpful to other living creatures, whether or not they can give you money. I mean, while money is nice, living in a joyous state and living in a state of receivership to see that there's so much good in the world. There's so much good right in front of us. How dense is reality? How much can we fit in our living experience? Well, there's already so much, but we just have to be aware of it. And we just have to be able to recognize what we want to add from what we see, what we perceive into our daily lives. I'm going to explore this concept of being charitable and apply it and see where that leads me. Now, none of this is, going to be peer-reviewed or, be able to be a non-deniable hypothesis or, any of that, right? Or disprovable, whatever it's called. But it's still worth making conclusions and noticing subtle things, even if they can't factually be proven, because if you're able to go to a conscious place where you're happy, there's continuous joy, you're not susceptible to the momentary pleasures and displeasures and pains that come with living as a modern person while also enjoying the benefits of modern life, then why don't we? My heart speaks to you, seekers of wisdom. Be blessed.